I will have such revenges on you both, that all the world shall. I will do such things. What they are, yet I know not. But they shall be the terrors of the earth. William Shakespeare, King Lear.
Hello and welcome to the Mushroom Murder Trial podcast. My name is Lisa. Now, before we start today, please get onto my website, mushroommurdertrial.com, and subscribe to the free newsletter. That way, you never miss a thing. Also, please subscribe, rate and review this podcast. Now, are you ready? I have so much adrenaline popping through my system because most of the suppression order was lifted on the pre-trial information. So I've been sitting on this for a very long time and I cannot wait, absolutely cannot wait to share it with you. So, shall we? For the first time, details of previously suppressed details concerning mushroom killer Erin Patterson's attempts to murder her estranged husband are now being made public. Police alleged the mother of two used a toxic penne pasta, a chicken korma curry, and a vegetable wrap to poison her husband, Simon Patterson, before hosting the deadly meal where she served a Beef Wellington containing death cap mushrooms. So, what drives someone to cross the line between frustration with their spouse and fatal intent? We've spoken about this to some degree on this podcast, but this information is going to give you a lot of background and I cannot wait to share it with you. The details of these new charges were not presented to the jury, which found Patterson guilty. But I want to take a step back in time because, as I said, I sat through all the pre-trial hearings and I have so much reporting for you. And I would sometimes see Erin on the live feed at the start of the hearings. The mushroom cook was normally sitting in her prison blues, being beamed in from her remand centre, Dame Phyllis Frost Prison, and she was wielding a massive yellow highlighter. Once I saw her wearing a white T-shirt and jeans. She seemed quite animated, chatting to a person off screen and flicking through paperwork. Which brings me to this. There are not many heroes generally in a food poisoning story, but one person stands out for saving Simon Patterson's life. It's the start of 2023, and no one was catching on to Erin's poisoning ways yet. The mum of two was going around her daily routine, continuing to look for ways to murder her husband. But someone was onto her murderous plans, and her civil engineer husband was now aware of exactly how dangerous Erin Patterson was. The whistleblower was Tim Patterson, Simon's cousin, and he was the first to see the one undeniable factor in all of Simon's life-threatening illnesses, Erin. Simon told the court it had not occurred to him that the series of medical emergencies were a result of Erin's cooking, but Tim noted his, quote, various concerns about Erin's food and her behaviour. Quote, I've got a lot of respect for Tim. If he suggests something, it's wise to take that seriously. Simon said the thought that he'd been poisoned had briefly crossed his mind after the first illness, and he recalled that he joked with Erin, quote, I think I joked with Erin before our trip that she might put poison in the food to poison me, he told the court. In my opinion, his cousin's intervention saved Simon's life. Suddenly, it all made sense. From this point onwards, the situation between the couple, that's Simon and Erin, was a tinderbox of emotion. It was explosive and inflammatory. According to the DPP, Erin made the following attempts on Simon's life. The accused at Leongatha on the 29th of the 7th, 2023, did attempt to commit an indictable offence, namely the murder of Simon Patterson. Number 2, the accused in the state of Victoria between the 16th of the 11th, 2021 and the 17th of the 11th, 2021 did attempt to commit an indictable offence, namely the murder of Simon Patterson. And then it goes on the 25th of the 5th to the 27th of the 5th, and then 26th of the 9th, 2022. So that's 4 charges there, but they were eventually dropped because it's hard to prove, obviously. but they were part of the broader case in which Erin was accused of 3 counts of murder and 1 additional attempted murder-related charge concerning the lunch with Ian Wilkinson. Camping. The first sign of trouble for Simon's health began in November 2021 when he went with Erin on a couple's trip to Wilson's Promontory. The father of 2 was at Erin's the night before and they were packing, and she offered him some penne bolognese, which she gave to him in a plastic container so he could eat it later at home. On the next morning, when he arrived at Erin's, Simon was asked if he was feeling ill because he looked grey. Quote, "I'm okay, just feeling stressed." When asked in court why he was anxious, he said it was, quote, about going away with Erin. Not long into their journey, Simon started to throw up, but the nature lovers still wanted to continue their journey and to go on to the prom. So they drove on with Erin at the wheel. Simon said he continued to suffer nausea throughout the drive. So they stopped once, they stopped again, this time for the whole morning. He was now having severe vomiting and diarrhoea. Quote, "We were discussing about what to do next. We decided to push on and stay at the accommodation. This was a joint decision and Erin, because she's so helpful, offered to search for an Airbnb. Turning back was also a viable option, but Simon still hoped to do a hike. When he entered the Airbnb later that afternoon, he was still unwell. Meanwhile, Erin made him, quote, drinks to get better, mainly electrolytes. Otherwise, she was relaxing and watching TV and on her phone. Later, she went to go shopping for the children and to buy him more electrolyte drinks. Feeling worse, Simon wanted to go to hospital. So he called his wife, who replied there might be a wait at the hospital, so why not ride it out? Hours later, Erin took him to Leongatha Hospital because he was increasingly unwell and had been so over an extended period of time. There was no mention of food poisoning, but he was asked what was the last thing he ate, penne bolognese, cooked by Erin, but the kids were okay after eating the same meal. Sound familiar? Upon arrival, the doctor seemed alarmed at the patient's kidney function, which prompted further tests. Despite still experiencing diarrhoea, the patient was on a drip, focusing on hydration and rest. It was proposed he had a C infection and tests were conducted to rule out possible causes. When asked about the last meal he consumed, he mentioned again it was the penne bolognese. At this stage, Simon testified the relationship with Erin was okay and she was caring for him with no particular issues. But the illness seemed to be progressing, causing concern. Once at the hospital, the symptoms eventually abated. He was treated with a drip and anti-nausea medication and he stayed in hospital for 1 night. After that stay, Erin drove Simon home. The patient then stayed at her residence overnight so he could be rehydrated. The following day, the patient returned to hospital as the previous doctor had recommended to follow up with a visit the next day. Because the vomiting and diarrhoea had stopped, the patient still felt unwell and was placed on a drip. An initial diagnosis suggested gastroenteritis with concerns about kidney function due to fluid loss. The next incident occurred on May 25 to 27. It was another camping trip. Now, I can't pronounce this, and I will have to spell it out because the last time I mispronounced something on this podcast, I got a 1-star review. So I'm going to spell it out. Howqua. That's where they were going. One evening, about a week before that journey, Simon arrived at Erin's house where she was preparing curry paste. The purpose was to customise the curry's spice levels for future meals. The following weekend, they made their way to... Simon said he was enjoying the camping trip and he'd cooked sausages with bread for dinner, followed by a chicken korma with rice on the second day. Erin had provided the food and the cooking of the sausages was done over a butane stove at a campground. They took their own water with them, 40 to 50 litres, and stored food in esky containers, some of which were wrapped in aluminium foil. The food, not the eskies. So that night, Simon woke up feeling hot, especially in the head, with sudden nausea, vomiting and diarrhoea. These symptoms mirrored the previous illness, prompting a decision to leave the campsite. They left when it was still dark. After discussing the situation, it was agreed he go straight to Mansfield Hospital. While Erin was preparing food, I was getting the fire going, so I didn't watch her prepare it, Simon said. He was assessed at Mansfield Hospital but was discharged later that afternoon. A few days later, however, Simon said the condition worsened while he was at home. He testified that he ended up in a coma and required life-saving surgery at Monash Hospital in Melbourne. They'd done a lot of tests. They hadn't found the cause of what happened to me, but they seemed to have dealt with the symptoms effectively, and there was a good chance I would make a full recovery, he said. But the couple still proceeded with their ideas for a camping trip, and this is now September 6, 2022. Erin said again that she would bring food for the trip. She brought items to make a curry, a vegetable wrap for me. I think she said she had those things, but not in a wrap. I trust my memory of this. The wrap was prepared, and when I see that, I can picture the wrap in the aluminium foil, and I can picture the ingredient in her lunch, which weren't wrapped. After eating the meal, Simon said he felt like he really needed to go to the toilet. He passed out and was hospitalised again and experienced slurred speech and possible seizures. Simon said he spoke to a doctor who was a friend later in 2022 and raised his suspicions that his wife was trying to poison him. The doctor was very thoughtful, Simon testified. If that was me, I would be telling everyone. I don't know. So, armed with the information, Simon eventually removed Erin as his medical guardian, and he spoke to Dr. Ford about that. So, these charges were part of a broader case in which Erin was accused of the 3 counts of murder and the additional account of attempted murder. Now, when Simon changed his advance care directive, he added Doug Patterson, his father. Around this time, he told his dad at his parents' house of his suspicions of poisoning. On February 21, 2023, Simon visited his friend and local general practitioner, Dr. Ford, again at the Leongatha surgery. As a civil engineer, Simon was seeking answers to his life-threatening health issues because he was not getting any. He had previously consulted Dr. Ford due to a series of these severe illnesses, which resulted in the hospitalisations, the comas, etc. Dr. Ford had told him to write down the circumstances of each of his 4 emergency hospitalisations to see if there were any common factors. And indeed there was one. Erin Patterson. During this consultation, he shared concerns about some cookies one of his children had baked for him. They were given to him before he took a trip to Sydney, but he felt uneasy about eating them. Dr. Ford said Simon's unease about the food offered for the trip was extreme. His patient mentioned Erin had repeatedly called to ask whether he had eaten the cookies. Simon said he eventually tasted a small piece, spat it out and threw the rest away, feeling more suspicious because he was almost certain Erin was trying to poison him. Simon had considered testing the cookies for poisoning, but he knew that the complexity of chemical testing made it nearly impossible to identify every potential toxin. The sense of foreboding would be just one in a series of unsettling events surrounding his wife. This sense of foreboding would be just one in a series of unsettling events involving Erin, whose seemingly ordinary life would later reveal a more dark and troubling undercurrent. Now, we'll go back to the time of the attempted murder charges when they were before the court. And Crown Prosecutor Nanette Rogers said an article was found on Erin Patterson's computer relating to barium carbonate, around the time Simon fell sick in September 2022. Barium carbonate is rat poison, Dr. Rogers said, adding that the prosecution had commissioned another report from the same medical expert which said Simon's symptoms were consistent with barium carbonate ingestion. Meanwhile, in a Currumborough Facebook group, Simon was posting about needing a physiotherapist to assist his recovery. We have spoken about this before, but just in case you haven't heard it, he was in an induced coma for 16 days, had 3 emergency operations on his small intestine, plus an additional planned operation. My family was asked to come and say goodbye to me twice, as I was not expected to live. I was in intensive care for 21 days, after which I was in a general ward for a week. Simon said his, quote, serious gut problems seemed to be fixed. I wonder why. But he had acquired an ICU weakness, acquired weakness, due to being in intensive care for so long. And excuse me, we are just going to have to swap tacks at the moment because I just saw a news update where the police have released footage of Erin's police interview. I have been really wanting to see this, and it's up live now. Now, this is from news.com.au. It's 21 minutes of footage released by the Victorian Supreme Court on Friday. And Erin's wearing a brown jumper. Do we think she's wearing white pants? Please let me know. These are also big issues. Patterson sat slightly hunched over the table across from 2 detectives as the left-hand side of her face is captured on tape. So we've heard before that Patterson said she'd never been in a situation like this before, and she'd been very, very helpful with an investigation from the Department of Health. I wanted to help with that side of things as much as possible because I do want to know what happened, she said. Turning to the topic of her relationship with her in-laws, Patterson said they're the only family that she's got. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to this article so you can have a look at it as well, the full video. So during the trial, Justice Christopher Beale said irrelevant material had been cut. Well, exactly. Are we ever going to know about the white pants? Please don't complain. A standard procedure in criminal cases. So it was recorded at Wonthaggi Police Station on the afternoon of August 5, just after they raided Erin's home. But Justice Beale ruled the interview should be released on Friday, citing a legal principle that justice should be seen to be done in public and that the footage will allow people to make their own judgments. So Erin's also being questioned by Detective Senior Constable Stephen Eppingstall. And it was just hours after she was informed that her mother-in-law, Gail Patterson, and Gail's sister, Heather Wilkinson, had died in hospital. And she didn't really react, according to police. Now, you may also be aware that Erin denied ever having a dehydrator, but the police had her on video dumping it on the 2nd of August. She was lying about that because she knew she was in trouble and the police were on to her. There's also the video we've seen before of her leaving the hospital after being warned that she shouldn't, that she could get very, very sick. Now, Erin's going to return to court on August 25 for a 2-day pre-sentence hearing. I will be there. It's going to be in Melbourne. And also, I have so much material here. This is just the first. I may get another episode out later today or early tomorrow. So thank you so much for listening to the Mushroom Murder Trial podcast. My name's Lisa. And make sure you sign up for my free newsletter, mushroommurdertrial.com. And if you would like to, as a thank you, buy me a coffee for $5, but only if you can afford it. And thank you so much for listening. Everything, including my socials and the buy me a coffee, they're linked in the show notes. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to be back. I'm on an absolute mission with so much adrenaline, and I shall talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.